on the open market, but we've also required utilities to engage with the environmental and consumer community on transforming the grid and making it ready for renewable energy. We've also, which is a key part of this. So as far as what's going on in California, Florida, and other states, different states are taking different actions, some of them positive, some of them negative. But I think my good friend Bill Abel touched on this. Any new building at this point that isn't, net zero emissions, that's crazy. I mean, we've got a whole lot of retrofitting to do, but it makes no sense at all to keep doing the same old thing that causes problems and requires further investment down the road. The problem is that not every home is suitable or every business is suitable for solar panels on the roofs. So I really believe that we've got to focus not only on what we call distributed generation, where we're asking businesses to put solar panels and homeowners to put solar panels on the roofs, but we've got to focus on community solar farms, wind farms. We've got to focus on changing our power sources in a bigger way than we can rely on individual customers to do.
Rob, I think that's, I think what you said is awesome. And we've been kind of focusing here on our transition to cleaner energy and talking about some of the things we can do and that we should do and that we must do. But I also want to point out that there are things being done right now today. The EPA is one of the organizations that is working every day to make this happen right here, right now. And we have Deborah Shore with us from the EPA. Deborah, I prefer not the compound question, but more the open question. So please talk about the things that are happening as we speak, not the things that we hope to do in 5 or 10 years.
Thanks, Joan, and happy to be with my esteemed panelists and join you all today. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law that was passed and signed by President Biden is a game changer in many respects. Though I know in the second hour, Congressman Caston and others will talk about the Build Back Better bill that hasn't yet passed and will be reconfigured. The one that did has $5 billion, for example, in it to convert the school bus fleet to electric school buses. And this is so important for public health, for the health of children. 25 million children, I believe, ride the bus to and from school every day, breathing polluted air from diesel engines. And also school staff, parents, drivers of these buses are exposed to pollution from diesel engines. So as we retrofit and convert school buses and there's new ones being manufactured to electric, that's going to be a big change, and they're much quieter. So I was told that the drivers can hear everything the kids say.
Is it a plus or a minus? I'm not sure about that, about that last thing. By the way, I just also was a technical thing I want to mention. If you might see Patty Vasquez with her notebook and her pen, Patty is going to be sharing with you, the panelists, some of the chat questions that we are getting while this live stream goes on. So she is taking copious notes now so that she can share all of our viewers and listeners' concerns and questions with you a little bit later in this broadcast.
Very cool. I'd like to get John Daniel in here. John, you're with Smart Local 265, excuse me. And, representing the perspective of labor, you're right in the middle of the labor movement in the United States and obviously in the Chicago area. How are the various industries that you guys interact with and that you're familiar with, how are they viewing this? And how is organized labor viewing this?
Sure, thanks, Tom. And Joan, it's great to see you again, Patty. Representative Newman, I appreciate your comments earlier. And Bill, I'm going to kind of tie into a little bit about what both of you spoke about. From our perspective, and I see a couple chats coming through as we're in this Zoom conference. Energy efficiency is something that we're really focused on. So I think Bill talked about new construction, green construction, doing the things to really, as we move forward, making sure that buildings are built better to conserve energy, just to tighten them up completely, make them healthier buildings. One of the things we're focused on is energy efficiency in existing buildings. What I don't think the general public understands is that about 40% of the total US energy consumption comes out of the building sector. That's more than the transportation sector or the industry sector. This means reducing energy consumption is essential to meet the US climate goals. And we're focused on making sure that message is clear and that it's out there, because it's something that we can directly impact. And all of the existing buildings throughout the country, they're not going to just go away, right? We need to build correctly going forward. We need to use some of the strategy that Bill talked about, that probably all of the panelists here are familiar with, to make sure that as we build forward, we're doing it thoughtfully, and we're doing it in a much smarter, green path. But we have to do something about the energy consumed in the current buildings. HVAC systems are a major source, like we're talking about, of energy use. They account for about 35% of the total building consumption. In a residential home, we were talking about residential systems. The HVAC system accounts for 50% of the home's energy use. Over 65% of residential HVAC systems run at suboptimal performance. So we're burning a lot of energy by improperly installed, not properly functioning mechanical systems throughout our buildings. And I'm just focused on, in my sector, the HVAC system, because that's the sector I represent. When we talk about the entire building envelope, single pane glass on both commercial and residential buildings, just vapor barriers, R values in walls, all of this stuff needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed thoughtfully, because that is a huge impact on our country's demand for energy, and finding a thoughtful way to fix the current demand. It really, what it comes down to, Tom, is you can design new systems and really, in an engineering controlled environment, say this performance is going to meet our green goals. But if that is not installed correctly per the designs of the engineer, if it's not put in correctly and then verified that it was done correctly, you're really just buying a more expensive product that's got great design criteria, probably some really good marketing pieces onto it. But if it's installed by underqualified workforce, you might as well just burn the money and reboot the system completely. So we're doubling down on our training programs throughout the country. All of the apprenticeship programs from my sector to IBEW to UA, across all platforms, understand energy consumption and how do we control energy consumption and costs for homeowners, for building owners, for our society. How do we do that right? How do we do it thoughtfully? So we're investing heavily to make sure our apprentices, our journeymen, are top notch. So we're meeting the design criteria of the engineers when they put it in. We have ventilation verification programs to make sure that not only is it put in correctly by trained technicians, we're verifying on the back end that you're meeting the design criteria to ultimately lower energy consumption across the country.
Yeah, if I could just pile on real quick to John's point.
Bill Abel.
That is really the opportunity here. That, yeah, it's a massive challenge, but there is huge potential in terms of new job skills, of training workforce, and what John mentioned about intentionality. Our policy has to intentionally not just solve the climate crisis, but address issue about what the new economy looks like, who has access to those jobs, and what the other spinoff benefits like healthier buildings and healthier neighborhoods mean for people.
And just to add one other point here,
Rob Kelton.
Energy efficiency lowers customers' bills. It
Absolutely.
requires a little bit of investment up front, but long term, the benefits on lower bills are huge. And I'm really surprised Bill Abel didn't mention that.
If I
can add just one more point to that round of points. Really critical. The Blue-Green Alliance that is in place in our nation, and we certainly have it here in Illinois, my labor council that is run out of my congressional office. We work very strategically with our labor movement partners on things like just transition and workforce training in all of those wonderful organizations, because they have these amazing training programs at each and every one of their locations. And it is really a great way to help connect all of the dots. Everything that we're saying is exactly right. Our goal is to, reduce emissions in their entirety. But if we don't connect all those dots, have the workforce training, have the green jobs ready to go, and working with our partners to achieve engineering goals, we're going to be in trouble. So this is a critical piece. It is the objective, but it also is the strategy and the tactics. So this panel is actually highly representative of how we all come together and convene and make sure this happens in a real way in real time.
And it's Deborah Shore. If I can add to this and pile on as well, there's been a lot of talk, and appropriately so, about energy efficiency in buildings. But what I'd like to see, and what I'm going to be working on, is bringing that whole of government approach to resiliency. In the past, when we would go into a dwelling and do energy efficiency projects, we weren't also looking at stormwater. Is the basement backing up during these more intense rainstorms? We weren't looking at lead paint removal and lead pipe replacement at the same time, or at urban street trees, which have stormwater benefits, reduce the urban heat island effect, and enhance quality of life. If we go into a dwelling with this whole of government approach, working with a variety of, say, federal partners that have resources, EPA, HUD, FEMA, DOT, and so forth, and not only will it protect public health, enhance property values, which is a benefit to the dwellers, and save money, as Rob Kelter said, but build in resiliency for the future. And those jobs, training people to become those SWAT teams, to go into a building on a block scale and do those retrofits and improvements.
A lot of opportunity here that we're hearing. We're going to hit a break here, and we're continuing our conversation here on climate change. Our climate change panel today with the supporting sponsors: ComEd, AECom, Illinois AFL-CIO, and our contributing panelists: Deborah Shore from the EPA, Rob Kelter, a senior attorney with the Environmental Law and Policy Center, Angela Tovar with the City of Chicago, the Chief Sustainability Officer, Congresswoman Marie Newman, Congressman Sean Casten will join us later. Carter O'Brien, I want to get to you, Carter, right after the break, with the Field Museum of Natural History, the Sustainability Officer at the Keller Science Action Center, and John Daniel, Business Manager over at Smart Local 265. From our supporting sponsors, Diana Sharp, the Vice President of Large Customer Operations at ComEd, Bill Abel, the VP of AECom, and Pat Devaney with the AFL-CIO. So we'll be back in just a moment, continuing our conversation about climate change. What is it? What can we do about it? What kind of opportunities does it present, as well as the dangers that we all face from it?
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Inbound Eden's bumper to bumper 2E down to the Kennedy merge. Lake Hook Road down to the junction 3515 on the flip. Now on the Kennedy outbound, it is jam-packed from the
I forgot to mention UAW Region 4 because I had scratched out John.
Express
They will be mentioned at the top of the region.
Inbound from O'Hare, it's an hour and 2.
Sorry?
8 of that now in from the junction. On the Eisenhower outbound.
And Tom, I don't know if you heard or got Melissa's note that even though they are sponsoring, Pat Devaney isn't going to be joining us. He's stuck in a negotiation, just FYI.
Stevenson outbound loaded up.
I had John Gedney not with us.
Lakeshore driving out.
Yeah, I already deleted.
Maybe they're both. I don't know. I got a note from Melissa about Pat.
That's traffic. I'm married to
Yeah,
bad.
they're both in the same
Kelly's
negotiation.
Blue Book Instant Cash Offer is an official offer to buy your car. Enter your vehicle ID info, answer some questions, then get a no obligation offer to sell or trade it. Then choose a dealer to purchase your car, schedule a time, and drive away with confidence. For all of the its, kbb.com it.
Hawk Volkswagen Joliet has all the newest Volkswagen models in stock and ready to drive home today, including Tiguan, Taos, Atlas, and Atlas Cross Sport models. With more arriving daily, now is a great time to trade in and trade up to a new or certified pre-owned Volkswagen. Used car values are at an all-time high, and Hawk Volkswagen will pay you top dollar for your trade-in. In fact, we can safely say your trade-in will never be worth more than it is right now, and no one will pay you more than Hawk Volkswagen. Plus, Illinois tax law has changed, and you will now receive a full tax credit on trade-in vehicles, which will save you thousands. We offer an unmatched, hassle-free buying experience, so come see for yourself why Hawk Volkswagen has been the #1 Volkswagen dealer in Illinois for the past 6 years in a row. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet, or visit them online at hawkvw.com. See dealer for details and work based on 2016 through 2021 retail sales.
Howdy, WCPT fans. It's me, Scott Silberman, your old school liberal loan guy, and I really don't know where this world is heading. Ukraine was invaded last month. 2 Republican congressmen actually spoke at a white nationalist conference, and the former prez still hasn't been charged with any crime. And although I'm angry, I'm also fired up to fight back. You should be too. In my little corner of the world, interest rates have finally gone up. If you're looking to buy, let me run you through automated underwriting and get you pre-approved. Call me at 847-423-0301. Realtors love working with buyers who already have their financing lined up. I have all the products you need, FHA, jumbo, conforming, and VA. So please reach out to me, Scott, 847-423-0301. And yeah, still answer my own phone. Or you can start online at scottsilberman.go, apmc.com.
American Portfolio Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity lender, NMLS 175656, Scott's NMLS 681059.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458, 800-481-1458, or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too.
You may be into punk rock, soft rock, or classic rock, R&B, hip hop, or house, country, techno, or techno country. But no matter what kind of music you listen to, here's something else you should hear. Please consider getting vaccinated. Talk to your pharmacist today about Comirnaty, COVID-19 vaccine mRNA. This message brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to This Climate Change Conversation on WCPT 820 with Tom Hartman, Joan Esposito, and Patty Vasquez. Sponsored by UAW Region 4, ComEd, AECom, and Illinois AFL-CIO.
And welcome back. We have an esteemed panel here. We're discussing climate change. And Diana Sharp, you're with ComEd. In fact, forgive me for what I don't have your title. Oh, here it is, Vice President of Large Customer Operations. My apologies, Diana.
No problem.
And very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you could speak a little bit about workforce development and what ComEd is doing in that specific realm, and then also in the larger context of climate change and preparing for it and dealing with what we have already.
Awesome. So first of all, thanks for having me on today, and excited to share some of the things that we're doing. So when we talk about workforce development here at ComEd, we're really thinking about jobs, and apprenticeships, and how we get people, particularly diverse populations, people who have traditionally been underrepresented in this field, into jobs. And so we run a number of workforce development programs. We sponsor a number of programs. We partner with different workforce agencies and labor unions to implement programs, and they are all around clean energy. They're around making sure that the grid is ready. When we think about climate change and we know what's coming, down the pike, we know what we're experiencing today. And we know that electrification is one of the ways that we can help mitigate some of those changes. And so we see a number of jobs that are coming down the pike that people are going to have to be ready for. We run our signature program, which is called Construct. This program is now in its 10th year. And we partner with 10 different nonprofit agencies across the city of Chicago and more than 40 corporate partners. So labor unions, other utilities, construction companies, et cetera, that all pay into the program. They hire from the program. They work with the participants to get kind of hands-on learning. And when our participants go through this program, they're learning not only job readiness skills, but they're learning about the energy industry and the construction industry. They're walking away with real life certifications that they can use to get a job. Just last week, we had our career fair. We had the 75 students that are going through the program. They got to meet with about 30 of the partners, have kind of on the spot interviews, and they walked out, some of them with, follow-up interviews, real solid potential for job offers. And so the programs that we're developing are really focused on that. We also know that there's so many new jobs that are going to come as we look at this clean energy future. So when you think about beneficial electrification and the different types of machines and different things that are going to have to be manufactured, and we're also going to have to perform maintenance, not we, ComEd, but the industry is going to have maintenance for those. There's people that are going to need to be trained for that. Electric vehicles, right? We're hearing every car dealer just about has electric vehicles on the lot now. All the car companies are starting to manufacture those vehicles. There has to be people that know how to manufacture and understand the technology there. They're going to have to be people that can perform maintenance on those vehicles, develop the charging stations to charge those vehicles. Talk about renewables, solar and battery storage. Again, you got to have it manufactured, you've got to have it installed, you've got to have it maintained. And so the job industry in this space is really, we're going to see a huge boom for it. And making sure that people can walk away with training and be ready to enter those jobs. It's going to be so important.
Diana, if you don't already know him, I want to introduce Carter O'Brien from the Field Museum. This is a guy who knows about sustainability. He knows about retrofitting. He knows about climate, and he's an expert on recycling as well. I was thinking of you, Carter, as we were talking about, A, what we can do in the future, but B, also how we have to retrofit, because the Field Museum is not a new building. I could be wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that you represent probably the oldest building of everybody in this group right now. Talk about your efforts.
Yeah, will do. Actually, my house is a little bit older, just to be honest here, but I'm in a 1905 worker cottage that I've rehabbed and tried to do all these retrofits. I've learned the hard way. The Field Museum is an exercise in that on steroids, and we do it all. So, it is a constant, never-ending effort to do everything. We try to reduce the energy use, the water consumption, the waste, and I find all these things kind of build on each other. But the most important thing that I've just learned as a Chicagoan is that you've got to be able to communicate it clearly to people, and you've got to be able to hit them where they live. So for me, that often means food. It means flooded basements, of which I have suffered many. And it means heat waves and things of that nature. And so when you start working on one of them, there's often benefits that you see ripple kind of up and down the chain. So I could talk about like emission reductions and things like that and changing light bulbs, which is great. But the Field Museum example is not usually translatable to people at home. So we try to just pitch it more along the line of, if we can do this at an institution this big, this complicated, with 2 million people coming in and out of the doors, that there's an avenue and an opportunity for you to make it work as well.
Buddy, I can change a light bulb. I am perfectly capable of doing just what the Field Museum is doing and putting different light bulbs in the sockets.
There you go. Yes, we have 20,000 of those light facilities. So
Okay,
it's taken us about 10 years to make these changes. I think some of the things that I've heard today that are fun to connect for people, especially with climate change, is methane. So we don't talk about methane much, and methane is a really big one. So when we're tightening these building envelopes, what we're also finding at the same time is that there's an indoor air quality problem because we've got gas stoves and we've got gas furnaces, and there's a lot of like actual health implications to this that we're going to need to figure out. And we also have HVAC industries that, it's a huge opportunity coming down the pike. Everyone is going to have to swap these furnaces out that has gas furnaces. And I'm not sure we're 100% ready for it, but I think it's going to happen really quick once the numbers start getting crunched a little bit more. Water is a huge one for us. We use water for cooling. I think with Lake Michigan here in Chicago, everyone got accustomed for many years of thinking of water as just sort of like a limitless renewable resource of sorts. But I know Deborah would know from her time at MWRD how much money it costs to take water that enters the storm system and pump it all the way to a treatment facility, clean it, and then send it back. So it would be much better, for example, to go the route of nature-based sort of solutions like trees and native gardens and things like that, where we can retain it and keep it where it is so that we don't have, like the backups and things of that nature. So we're always excited to talk about all these things. We had a climate change exhibit dating all the way back to 2008. At the Field Museum, we tried having offset for transportation emission programs right around that time. And so what we've learned is we hope everyone can learn from our example of like what works and what doesn't work quite so well when it comes to talking with the public. And as we're scaling, the scaling is the big thing, because we're really dealing with billions of individual decisions at the end of the day, because things like plug load, plug load is the real big one. I saw personally on my own energy bills when, we went from transitioning to more remote work to people going, a daughter who went back to school. On the days that my daughter went back to school, my energy use cut by half. So the young people today, man, they have an ability to just like use energy like you cannot even believe, because there's multiple streaming, there's high definition, there's all these things that kind of can connect. And I think there's lots of opportunities for us to both make the individual decisions without laying, without forgetting the fact that the big stuff needs to happen as well. We need the big sector shift. We need the things like the city of Chicago announcing its divesting, its investments. What a huge thing, I think, for all of us, and what an important thing for the city to do. And it's just great to, at least know that we're working for something good, and it feels good. And I think the more people learn about it, the more kind of enthusiastic they buy into it.
It's a fine thing, Carter. It truly is. And Representative Newman, to Carter's point about scale, we for a long time, the fossil fuel industry and their apologists, from trashing Al Gore for using airplanes, they try to throw the responsibility on us. But the simple reality is, if everybody in America did everything that they could and replaced all their light bulbs with LED bulbs and recycled all their waste and literally did everything that was reasonable and within their capabilities, it would be a relatively small dent on what really needs to be done. This stuff needs to be done at scale, and that means government. And so if you could speak to that, how that's being addressed, and in the context of workforce development, which is kind of theoretically our topic for this half hour, right, how government can help bring that forward, make that work.
Well, there's a number of workforce development bills out there right now that engage our green transition. So part of the challenge with workers is that we know that we need to do these projects in construction, transportation, inside buildings, retrofitting. We know we need to do all these things. The transition is the problem. So it involves creating specific green job training programs. There is a combination of our private and publicly traded companies like ComEd, and then there are our labor brothers and sisters that have great programs. But also, don't forget, we have these amazing things called high schools and community colleges. And so I spent the day at 2 community colleges yesterday that do an amazing job with this, where they take folks and help them understand what the green jobs will be and help them understand how that will work in the greater scheme of things. And it really connects all the dots for young people or people choosing a second career. So that's critically important. And those are things that can be funded. And that's what government is good at, is having all of our partners, public and private, come together and build the programs, and then we fund it. And those bills are in place as we speak. Some of them were in Build Back Better that I was actively supporting and working on. We hope that some of those workforce training programs can now be executive action. It is very clear that our friends across the aisle, our Republican colleagues, are not interested in a lot of this climate action. So it is our goal. I'm the vice chair of the Progressive Caucus, and we work on many of these things. What we have said to the president is, please do execute executive action on climate action around workforce training programs that will get us further and faster, and working with all those infrastructures we already have with our union brothers and brothers and sisters, and then the private sector. The other area that's critically important for government to take part in are education and awareness. So one of the bills that I'm personally working on is creating climate change and climate action as a curriculum inside of schools starting in 2nd grade. What is missing? My kids are 21 and 23. I've asked them every year, what did you learn about climate this year? And they're like, bumpkus. So we really need to start educating our children on this so that they're ready to go understand the problem and can be part of the solution. Those are things that we can do federally. And we certainly can do a lot more around educating just everyday people about what they can do. Get on a train and then require that that train be electrified or it be run by renewables. So those are some of the things as citizens, and that we can get more active in engaging with our government.
Well, you're talking about workforce development and retraining people. We have our very own expert, John Daniel, who has been working on these issues for a very, very, very long time. John, what are you doing to bring your union workers up to speed on these new green technologies?
Thanks, Joan. So I'm listening to all the panelists talk, and I'm making some notes on some of the key words, and I hear sustainable a lot, right? We're talking about reliability, scalable infrastructure. And you know, we talk a lot about this great resignation of the workforce. We talk about lack of qualified workforce as we move forward. So that's constantly on our radar. How do we train, right? How do we grow and attract talent, and how does that talent represent the communities that we do the work in? So how do we diversify not only what we're training, how are we preparing for green jobs, making sure HVAC systems, building infrastructure meets demand criteria, so it is saving energy consumption, but how do we truly lift the middle class while we do all of that and diverse ourselves as an industry? That's on the table in just about every meeting that I'm in. And all of that comes to fruition just in the simple word of union. And I think the core value of who we are and what we do is we privately invest into our own training, right? We have industry partners, our contractors, that we work in a true partnership with to make sure we meet the demand of the industry. I don't know what the general public, I try to put myself in the non-union sector to understand how they see us. And I have a hard time seeing the picture that they see, because I live in this world where we provide a path for people to have a real career, a middle-class career without having college debt. We actually invest in ourselves privately and train ourselves and our membership in partnership with our contractors to make sure we're thinking about a sustainable electric grid going forward, and how do we minimize the electric bills for the middle class and everybody, which drives down total energy consumption for the country. Everything that organized labor does focuses on everything that we're talking about here today. I know we currently have 14,000 apprentices registered in our association nationally. We have 148 different training centers. I don't have the actual millions of dollars that we spend privately I don't have that in front of me, but it's a lot. I know just in my local in Northern Illinois, just outside Chicago, we're north of $2.5 million a year that we spend just on my population. So if you multiply that by 148 places like me, you start understanding the magnitude of the investment that we make with our own members' dollars investing into themselves to position our contractors to succeed. So ultimately, we lower energy consumption and try to find a way to provide a sustainable future for our country. When I think about the next workforce, Joan, I was recently at a Partners in Progress conference in Vegas, where throughout our international SMACNA, our contractor partner, and then Labor, SMART, Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation, we get together and talk about things like this. What does our future look like from a technology standpoint, from a people standpoint? How do we, I'm an old white guy, right? Older white guy. The next generation is not going to look like me. They can't look like me. I'm not fully representative of the communities that we work in. And we have to recognize that. And the next generation of workforce doesn't think like I think. I look just at my kids. I have 3 boys, 20, 24, 27. They think dramatically different than me. One of the things I really took note of at that conference about the next workforce is when I grew up in the trade, I'm 31 years in the sheet metal industry, work ethic was everything. Show up early, 8 for 8, get it done, right? If I cut my finger, I wrapped it up with electrical tape and I kept moving because I needed those hours. The next generation doesn't focus on work ethic. And a lot of us think, yeah, they're lazy, right? They don't have the same work ethic as we do. They're more focused on ethical work than work ethic. They want to do meaningful work. And we have to be cognizant of that as a country and as an employer, as a union, as an industry, that to attract the next workforce, work ethic isn't something that means a lot. Ethical work is going to mean much more. And I'm excited about that, because when we start talking about how do we save our country, how do we save our planet, how do we do things in a more thoughtful way forward, I actually think the next generation is going to really kill it and do a nice job getting us where we need to be. And hopefully a piece of that is really our country getting back to a unionized sector where we have nonprofit healthcare. We can maintain human resource components for a transient workforce, so we can be more scalable and move to where the different work is by maintaining healthcare for the people that are doing that work. I think our country, and President Biden's probably said the word union more than any other president that I can recall. And he's constantly talking about how do we lift more people into the middle class. When I wrap this entire conversation together in my mind, the simple word comes to a union and a partnership with industry, and making sure that construction is done with qualified technicians, partnering with engineers that create these great designs to make sure we can meet future demands, and all of us working together to really put that workforce in a thoughtful way on the streets. I'm really excited about the future.
Diana Sharp with ComEd, do you want to put a punctuation mark? Your thoughts on John's comments? We have just about 2 minutes here before we get, or maybe 3 before we've got to hit a break.
Absolutely. So I could just say ditto to everything that he said, but I think he hit the nail on the head that this is going to have to be around about partnerships, right? Everybody has to come to the table, understand the full problem, and figure out how we address it. I think the other piece that we've got to think about are what are those barriers to entry? So if we have this massive amount of work that needs to get done, and we have people that are able to do it, but they don't have the training, how do we get that training done? But how do we remove the barriers to get them into those training programs? How do we make sure that they're aware of the training programs? And then how do we make sure that those training programs are funded, that they're sustainable, that it's getting people the hands-on training that they need. And all of that has to be done with multiple parties at the table. You've got a great, panel here of people talking from all different disciplines. And it's everything from government to the labor unions to the private companies like ComEd, to the educational institutions. We're talking to the community colleges. We're working with the high schools. We're trying to build that pipeline of talent to get them in the door. And so it's a lot of work to get done. And I think we're poised. We're right at the door to do it.
Yeah, it is, and we're so pleased to hear that ComEd is on it too. There's some great organizations, great corporations, obviously great labor unions, such incredible opportunities, and people in our legislature. We're going to take a break here at the top of the hour. We're just about a minute short of it, but I think we can hit a break now. It's our climate change panel. We'll continue in the following hour. It's our presenting sponsor, UAW Region 4, our supporting sponsors, ComEd, and we've had Diana Sharp, our Vice President, Large Customer Operations, with us, AECom, and Bill Abold, the Vice President, has been with us and will continue to be with us. Illinois AFL-CIO and Pat Devaney. From the EPA, Deborah Shore, the Regional Administrator with Region 5. With the Environmental Policy and Law Center, Rob Kelter, a Senior Attorney. With the City of Chicago, Angela Tovar. Chief Sustainability Officer, Congressman Sean Casten will join us. Congresswoman Marie Newman has been with us. And thank you so much, Congresswoman, you're doing great work, particularly, being one of the vice chairs of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. That's such a big deal. And it's such important work. And you're doing God's work. Carter O'Brien with the Field Museum of Natural History, the Sustainability Officer at the Keller Science Action Center, and John Daniel with Smart Local 265. We all know John. We'll be right back.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, Joan.
I'm going to say goodnight. You guys, Tom, Patty, you guys are all in good hands. Go.
Thanks. Great job, Joan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm going to drop off as well. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, great conversation. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Night.
Marie. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye. So I think, Tom, a lot of the questions I'll have will be the similar way, because I think I can feed off of the questions that you have for the panelists and do the similar pattern.
Well, I'm just kind of winging it here.
And it's going well. I'm going to grab some water.
Fortunately, we have people who know what they're talking about. So
always helps.
So I guess we should probably start with Sean Casten and Build Back Better.
The president says,
and Angela has joined us as well.
Than ever.
Oh, okay. Hi, Angela.
Leaders.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So I'll start with Sean, and then you can toss it to Angela.
That
Patty,
sounds great. Absolutely.
Carry on.
This is Sean. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Yep,
sounds good.
Okay.
Are stopping.
Looks like you're in terminal 1.
You're very savvy. Taking my daughter off to go look at some colleges.
Oh, excellent.
Kanji Brown.
So Tom, on the Build Back Better in this topic, Congressman Casten and Angela Tovar and Bill Abolt, they are going to be weighing in on this, along with Deborah Shore, who also recently toured an electric vehicle plant with Sean. So I think they've got some interesting things to tell us about what they saw there.
Here's our opportunity.
Thank you. As usual, you're doing a great job as our producer here.
Thank you, Tom. It was easy material to work with, let me tell you.
It really troubles me.
And on Wall Street, stocks recouped yesterday's losses as crude oil prices fell. This is AP News. Search teams in southern China, where a China Eastern Airlines Boeing jet crashed on Monday, have found a wing and some engine parts. AP correspondent Charles De La Desma has more.
Hundreds of people in rain gear and rubber boots are searching muddy forested hills for the second flight recorder from a jetliner that crashed, 132 people aboard. No survivors have been found since the Boeing 737-800 dived into a mountainous area, but authorities say they're still looking. Officials report, though, that some human remains and engine parts have been located, as well as items in the cockpit and some belonging to passengers. One of the two black box recorders believed to be the cockpit voice recorder was found on Wednesday. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
132 people were aboard the flight when it went down. I'm Ben Thomas, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Line service has been temporarily suspended between 54th and Central Park with police activity. Shuttle buses are being provided. In Joliet, police activity has Briggs closed both ways between US 6 and Copperfield Avenue. Eden's End, bumper to bumper 2E down to the Kennedy Merge. Lake Hook Road down to the Junction 37 outbound is clear. Now the Kennedy outbound is 41 to the Split 28 in the Express, hour and 3 out to the airport. Inbound from O'Hare, hour 1. 24 is that now in from the Junction. Ike outbound bumper to 25th Avenue. Circle to 390 an hour and 10. Inbound is 1 hour. Stevenson outbound stop and go. Most of the way out to the Des Plaines River Bridge. From DeSable Lakeshore drive out to 355 an hour and 7. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
Hi, this is Jason the acupuncturist. 2 years ago, after 18 years of practice, I opened up Chicago Community Acupuncture at Milwaukee Devine and Nagel in order to provide top quality acupuncture to the public at an affordable price. And it's worked. We've helped hundreds of people for about half of what others charge. Now, this is going to work great on radio, but imagine how this web address looks. ChiCom Acu. ChiComacu. I showed it to my daughter and she said,
"That says Chico Maku."
So I asked my other daughter if it said ChiCom Acu, and she said,
"No, that's Chico Maku."
So however you want to remember it, ChiCom Acu or Chico Maku, that's where you can read about our practitioners, conditions we treat like pain, anxiety, insomnia, or many others, and book an appointment. Or you can call us at 773-853-0920. 773-853-0920. Remember, ChiCom Acu or
Chico Maku.
1 minute.
Did you know that doctors use Mucinex? That's right. Mucinex is the #1 OTC brand doctors trust for the and their families.
Hey, Sean.
Congestion. You need a medicine that's effective and
Yeah.
long-lasting.
You can mute. I think if you mute before until we go to you, that would help.
Mucinex 12-hour DM extended
I
release.
can do that.
Allow
Thank
for
you.
immediate and extended release, relieving cough and chest congestion for 12 hours. Grab Mucinex and put yourself back in control. Use as directed.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458. 800-481-1458 or visit.
I'm trying to find the mute button. I apologize.
Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds
Hey, Matt,
too.
can you mute Sean?
Yeah, no, that's me. I'm trying to find the mute button on my phone. Here we go.
I know, but I think Matt might be able to mute.
Hartman, Joan Esposito, and Patty Vasquez. Sponsored by UAW Region 4, ComEd, AECom, and Illinois AFL-CIO.
And welcome back to our climate change panel. I'm joined in this half hour by Patty Vasquez, the WCPT, who will be taking turns asking questions here. We've got some great panelists, and we'll be getting basically going through the list here. We got John Daniels from Smart Local 265, Carter O'Brien with the Field Museum of Natural History, Angela Tovar with the City of Chicago, Deborah Shore with the Environmental Protection Agency, Bill Abold with AECom, Rob Kelter, the Environmental Law and Policy Center, and Congressman Sean Casten is also on the line with us. Representative Casten, if I could start with you. The Build Back Better program was like the big kind of moonshot with regard to climate change, almost $500 billion committed to that. It got killed tragically by every single Republican in the U.S. Senate and two Democrats. Tell us about this. How did this legislation come about? What are the pieces of it? What might be salvageable from it? Do you see anything coming out of this? If that happens, is it possible that things can be done in this congressional session, or is it going to be after the first of the year? And at the risk of throwing too much at you all at once, but I'm guessing you can handle compound questions here. What will happen if the Republicans take the House or the Senate next year?
Well, I think all those questions are sort of one and the same. So the overall package that the president put to us, his American Jobs Plan, was his comprehensive plan, which included substantially the work we did last term on the Select Climate Committee. He had other pieces as well, of course, child credit, making sure seniors can reduce their cost of prescription drugs. But what he tasked the Congress with was to say, do as much of this as you can on a bipartisan basis, and we will get the rest through on reconciliation in the Senate. And so he was putting out an olive branch to the Republicans to say, let's do what we can. What we got done on a bipartisan basis was the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. Because that is the bipartisan infrastructure plan. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but for the most part, it did not include the climate provisions. There's money for electric vehicle charging infrastructure and some other issues, but the bulk of the climate work could not get done on a bipartisan basis, which is sort of the answer to your second question. If you want to work on climate, you've got to be partisan, because that's the nature of where we are right now. Now, what I'm cautiously encouraged by, Senator Manchin has said fairly consistently that his objections to the Build Back Better were not related to the climate provisions. Now we'll see, depending on what side of bed he wakes up on, sometimes it's hard to tell, but we are trying to push the Senate right now. I just led a letter with 89 of my colleagues. I think we had 5 committee chairs, people from every ideological caucus, pushing the White House to really lean in on the reconciliation process, get that done now while we can, and not just from where we are in the elections, but we're out of time on the environment. Like, let's get it done because we're adults and we're in control. But to push forward right now, we got positive feedback. My expectation at this point is that we have to manage a little bit of what's going on in Ukraine, just in terms of how much political capital the White House can use at once. But I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get at least something like the roughly $550 billion of climate provisions passed before this term is out.
Well, that's awesome. Patty?
Yes, I wanted to ask Angela with the City of Chicago, our Chief Sustainability Officer. A lot of residents of Chicago are committed to participating and doing the most that we can, recycling, trying to use less energy. What we learned in the last hour is that 40% of, a lot of the energy is used in buildings. So obviously there has to be a lot of work done with corporations, with building owners, landlords, really the people who make those big decisions. What is some of the City of Chicago's climate action plan and the decarbonization work that's being done, and what kind of investments are being made? And obviously there's a big focus right now on environmental justice in communities that are disproportionately affected by pollution.
Sure, absolutely. And thanks for asking that important question, Patty. And to Representative Caston's point, it's a true bummer that the Build Back Better plan has been delayed, because this was the federal government's commitment to investing in retrofits of our existing buildings. And so, that percentage, right? We know that buildings is our largest source of emissions here in the Chicago region, and for most major cities, that's the case. And, even ahead of the climate action plan, the City of Chicago tapped 54 of our experts throughout the city to say, please come together with us to devise a plan to think about how we can decarbonize our buildings, how we can lower our emissions, and really make an impact on climate. And Carter, who is also here on the panel, is one of our esteemed working group members. But we wanted to talk to people, design experts, architects, people who do affordable housing. We wanted to talk to community organizers. We wanted to talk to people who work with tenants' rights advocacy, right? Just to really understand how we can decarbonize our buildings, how we can think about what retrofits would look like for all building typologies, and how we can build to the highest efficiency standards at the time of new construction. So we have been working now for about a year. We have a suite of recommendations that we are planning to deliver to the mayor soon. And then the hope is that we can continue as a group to work on policy development to move that work forward. The other piece of this is the climate action plan. So the decarbonization plan, we know we did not have to wait for the climate action plan to move forward to start with building policy, right? We know that that's our largest source of emissions. So we went ahead and moved on that. But the other piece of this is setting more ambitious goals for the city of Chicago. We haven't formally had a climate action plan since 2008. We've had some really wonderful sustainability plans and other policies that have moved the needle on climate and climate and our climate goals. But formally, we have not had a plan for quite some time. And so it was really important for us to think about those sources of emissions, which in the city of Chicago, it's building, transportation, then waste as our three largest sources of emissions, and really design a plan. But then in this moment, to also think about, the COVID pandemic, to think about environmental justice, to think about communities that are disproportionately impacted by climate change right now, and to really think about where we are in this moment as a city, and to think about a plan that sets those ambitious targets, but also drives equitable co-benefits that our communities need right now. And so a lot of our plan, our big overarching goal, I know when people think about climate action plans, they want to know what your number is, right? What are you going to do by what year? So our plan is 60 by 40 with a glide path to net zero by 2050. But the other important thing, just going back to what I said about this moment in time that we're in, is that this plan also just lifts up other co-benefits, equitable co-benefits that people should expect through these actions. So that means, making sure that people have different modes of transportation to get around that are low in carbon, making sure that we're talking about retrofits that deliver household savings to people, making sure that we're building a plan that will improve air quality, especially for people most vulnerable, or reducing urban heat island effect, right? There are parts of our city that don't have a lot of coverage, a lot of green space, that are hotter when we have high heat days. So it's really about, setting those goals and then also devising a plan that really looks at how we can take care of each other and how we as a city can, support our residents and how we collectively can take care of one another.
That's absolutely brilliant. Bill Abel, AECOM, you guys are a substantial construction consulting or infrastructure consulting firm. I was just checking your website. You're doing the airport in New Orleans and disaster resilience, and, pandemic response, all kinds of stuff. How does the relationship between government regulation, government participation in this marketplace, and business, what happens at that intersection? What are you seeing? And then more generally, also, if I could, I'm curious your take on how your clients are dealing with this. I mean, is this the sort of thing that construction companies and operations across the country that you and your peers at your company deal with? Is it the sort of thing that they're like, well, I guess we've got to do this, or is there a sense of urgency in the private sector as well?
I think there's clearly a sense of urgency. We work for governments, we work for utilities, we work for private businesses and not-for-profit institutions. And in my career, I've been in this business over 30 years. I've never seen such a growing consensus about the need to act and to act now, and a growing awareness of the consequence of not acting. I mean, you see businesses making big decisions about their assets. Our company by itself has, established new risk requirements as to which types of projects we can look at. But you also see those businesses making big commitments and bets on the future. The auto companies that are saying we're going to be all electric vehicles by X date. So where's the kind of intersection between what government does and the private sector? First, It won't happen if the federal government in particular doesn't step up to the plate. And I think the infrastructure legislation that is unprecedented that the congressman mentioned to start with is a big step. If you want to really scale, you've got to have a partnership, and that partnership, government can't do it alone. The sector has to get involved, but I think the private sector is ready to go. But then you need significant public sector action that levels the playing field. And while there's state by state action and cities being leaders like the city of Chicago, it doesn't go as fast if the federal government doesn't get in the game. I think a few things that really scale well right now and are advanced by government action is particularly around, and partnership is particularly around transportation electrification. That's a massive, quick transformation. The parties need to get going, and the federal money can't come quickly enough. I think grid modernization is another one. You know, ComEd regularly talks about the electric grid as being one of the most complex systems ever designed, and it's true. And to make it work right and reliably and cleanly, it's a big system effort. And then, you know, we've already mentioned the issue and opportunity around buildings. And I just want to add one additional thing about co-benefits that Angela talked about, and co-benefits that we have to think about delivering because they're absolutely essential. I'm in an engineering company. You know, we have people from labor, from the utility, and all of us agree there are not enough STEM workers in the pipeline to do all of the work that has to be done, right? You know, I think Carter made it real clear. This is a big STEM assignment, right? We need to train the workers. And when you do the math, right? I'm from an engineering company. If you don't really be inclusive about opportunities and eliminating the barriers that were talked about earlier, unless we really create opportunity for everybody, we are not going to solve this problem because we won't have enough people to do the equations. So it's a huge opportunity. A partnership is essential, and federal leadership is essential, but in and of itself, not sufficient.
Before I give Deborah Shore from the EPA question, Bill, I assure you, I have an 18-year-old who's about to go to college. I did everything I could to get him involved, and he was great at it, but he prefers English, history, and philosophy. So I swear I tried.
I tried really hard. I was a political science major, but you know, at least I could say I'm a scientist.
Everybody's redeemable.
There you go. Deborah, I wanted to ask you a question about the Clean Water Act, which turns 50 this year. And in 1972, it was a huge win and really set the foundation for setting guidelines for pollutants in our water. 50 years later, we know that there are some improvements, but there's such a long way to go. I learned yesterday that it's been 30 years since we've really updated that policy, and so much has changed over the last few decades. And over half of our waterways are polluted, and so many of which, we're next to Indiana, where almost a quarter of their rivers and lakes are polluted to the level where it's deemed dangerous. Of course, we enjoy Lake Michigan. All the Great Lakes are gems of the Midwest. What can be done at the national level to really change that policy, to update where we're going and drive a path forward?
Well, thanks, Patty. And yes, you're right. The Clean Water Act was one of the most aspirational, part of a suite of aspirational pieces of legislation that were passed roughly 50 years ago, including the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Air Act and the Endangered Species Act and the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency. And part of that was driven by the Cuyahoga River catching fire that captured the public imagination and horrified everyone. How could a river catch fire? And the notion that we could treat our living ecosystems of rivers and streams and lakes as a proper place to dump our waste. And it's true we have a long way to go, but the Cuyahoga River is not going to catch fire again. And we've done a lot to clean up some of our rivers and streams. We do have more to go, but if anything can bind us together as a people, it's the recognition that everyone deserves clean, safe water to drink, safe air to breathe, and soil that's not contaminated. So I hope we can find ways to knit ourselves together and take care of what Pope Francis calls our common home. What can be done now? Well, the EPA in the infrastructure law is nearly doubling its budget. It's a game changer in terms of the resources that are going to be devoted to drinking water systems, to wastewater systems, to a variety of infrastructure in the water sector. And I hope that some of that will go to 21st century designs and systems and not just repairing our older gray infrastructure. But we are, as you note, enormously fortunate to live near and have access to the terrific freshwater resources of the Great Lakes. As a result, it's incumbent on us to take care of them, to show we can be caring stewards of this precious freshwater resource.
Thank you, Deborah. That was great. Representative Caston, Congressman Sean Caston. When I was watching a day or three ago, President Biden talking about following his conversation with President Xi, that if President Xi didn't or did offer military aid to Russia, that there might be economic consequences. And it occurred to me that if we put in place anything like the barriers to commerce that we've established with Russia right now, with China, we would be in huge trouble here in the United States. I mean, every Walmart would be almost completely empty. But in the context of climate change, a large portion of the things that have to do with climate change are made in, not necessarily all in China, but we get a lot of windmills from Finland and whatnot. An awful lot of stuff is sourced overseas. Can you speak to the issue? And I realize it happens at a whole bunch of different levels, of jobs, of the environment, of government spending, of trade policy, to the issue of localizing, essentially, or at least United States-izing our efforts to become energy independent and maintain that status.
That's a big meaty question, but the fortunate thing is the answer to I think almost every question you've asked so far is the same, that we've got to make our economy more renewable and more energy efficient. And whether that's a question of what's the best thing we can do for historically disadvantaged communities, we'll take away the smokestack that's polluting them and give them access to cheaper energy. What's the best thing we can do to reduce our exposure to crazy people in Russia and other petrostates? Reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, right? Because if you don't want to worry about whether or not your fuel price is going to spike tomorrow, it's great if you have an electric car and a net zero home and solar panels on your roof, right? Because then you don't pay for any energy. Now we have to deploy the capital to do that, but we have an amazing opportunity, and that's really what we're trying to do in these infrastructure programs. Specific to China, I want to just share a couple numbers because this is a much easier problem than we have made it out to be. The United States today generates 20 cents of economic activity for every 1,000 BTUs of energy. Don't worry about the units, it's a unit of energy. For every 1,000 BTUs, we generate 20 cents. China generates 15 cents. China would love to have the kind of efficiency that we have because we are less exposed to volatile energy prices than China is. So China's 15, we're 20. The United Kingdom generates 40 cents, 40. Switzerland generates 60 cents, 60. That means that we could cut our energy use by a third and have the same kind of economic activity, or if you prefer, we could triple the economic activity of this country without increasing our energy use. That's how we decouple. And the difference is, the reason why we haven't done that so far, the reason why we're so bad, is because we have subsidized our energy industry so much in the United States. We subsidize our energy industry today by $650 billion with a D dollars a year. That's as much as we spend on Medicaid. It's almost as much as we spend on defense. And so as we're thinking about, yes, localize, but take away those subsidies, because then markets will really work. All the stuff that AECOM is talking about doing, businesses really like controlling costs. They're good at it. One of the costs they'd love to conserve is to not buy as much fossil fuel, right? But we distort the markets by the way that we bring these things in. So, we have an opportunity. It's a win for the environment. It's a win for the economy. It's a win for national security. And I think a part of the conversation that we can have, whether with Putin or with Xi, is once we build all of these clean energy assets, what's going to happen? All the manufacturers are going to want to locate in the United States because the manufacturers love and have access to clean energy. That's a strategic advantage. And we're going to find ourselves accelerating the situation we're already in as a country, where we are creating jobs faster than we're creating workers. That's a good problem to have, but that's this conversation about the STEM workforce, right? So all this stuff ties together. So let's put ourselves in a position of leadership, notwithstanding the fact that we haven't led on climate for 30 years, and the rest of the world will follow us. We're good at leading in the United States. We just have to stop being constrained by our ambition.
Just a quick follow on, and then we're going to hit a break. How is it even, Congressman, is it even remotely possible to get your Republican colleagues who have spent my entire lifetime talking about how government should stay out of the marketplace to stop voting for that $600 billion worth of subsidies to the fossil fuel industry every year?
Well, I'll tell you, I gave a funny floor speech that I had some fun with it, where I said, if you had an industry that was blowing through $300 million of cash this year, blowing through bankruptcies, was slashing their price and still couldn't keep market share, and we were insisting that banks lend to them in spite of them not wanting to do so, you know what you'd call that? Call it socialism. and yet that's what my Republican colleagues want to do. The truth is, the challenge, and if we take this out of Republican or Democratic, think about what it would mean to cut our energy use by a factor of 3 in this country. That would represent the biggest wealth transfer from energy producers to energy consumers in the history of our species. And what that means from the perspective of the United States is a massive wealth transfer from the rural energy extractive regions of the country to the places where people live. Be wonderful for Illinois. It'll be pretty tough for West Virginia and for North Dakota. And we've gotten to a point, it didn't used to be the case, but we've gotten to the point where that divide between the parts of America where we extract resources and the parts of America where people live has become the divide between the Republican and the Democratic Party. Right? Didn't used to be that. You used to have someone like Tom Daschle from the Dakotas. You used to have people like Henry Hyde in my district. That we've sort of reshuffled ourselves. And so I think we need to be sensitive to that issue. And frankly, we did a lot of this in the Build Back Better. We are going to, as George Bush said, we are going to make the pie much higher. but we need to make sure as we make it higher, that we allocate some of those gains to the folks who got our economy to the place where it is right now, but need to know that they won't be left behind going forward.
Brilliant. Representative Sean Casten. It's our climate change panel here. We're talking about all issues climate change. We will continue the conversation on the other side of this break. You're listening to WCPT AM 820 in Chicago.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Now in Joliet, heavy police activity as US 6 closed both ways right at Copperfield Avenue. Eden's End from Lake Cook Road, 41 minutes down to the junction, hitting the Briggs right at Dewey. Now the Kennedy out to the split is 46:22 in the Express, hour and 11 out to the airport. Inbound from O'Hare, hour 4:23 of that in from the junction. Ike outbound at Kedzie, a crash off under the shoulder. Circuit at 390, an hour and 9. Inbound's an hour and 3. Stevenson outbound stack solid out to the Des Plaines River Bridge. The Sauble driving out to 355, an hour and 1. The Ryan out to 95th and 33, braking at 43rd. Inbound's a nightmare at a standstill from the Chinatown feeder ramp to the Burn. 95th on in at 45. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
This Saturday, tune into HGTV's Build It Forward. In collaboration with Lowe's and 100 Hometowns, Build It Forward will select 5 local heroes for a surprise home renovation. Saturday at 5 p.m. Central on HGTV and streaming on Discovery Plus.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458, 800-481-1458, or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too.
Okay, so we got the chorizo dumplings, the cucumber empanadas.
Zara's food truck is popping off.
Come on, guys, let's pick it up, all right?
But if she doesn't find a new chef, her truck will be stuck.
Carl quit this morning, so Jessica, I'm gonna need you on the fryer.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
A Better Life with Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Look, it's not just you. We've all been more forgetful during the pandemic. I really learned a lot taping a recent episode of my CNN podcast, Chasing Life, all on memory. One of the biggest takeaways was that when you can't remember something, it's usually that your brain never properly encoded the memory in the first place, not that you've necessarily forgotten it. So, if we're sleep deprived, if we're stressed, if we've got a million things on our minds, neurobiologist Michael Yassa says we're much more likely to be inattentive in that manner and then attribute it later to some sort of forgetting. For his part, neurologist Rudy Tanzi told me you can keep your brain healthy and improve your memory by using the acronym SHIELD. Sleep, handle stress, interact socially, exercise, learn new things, and watch your diet. The key to remembering, paying attention in the first place. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta, helping you live a better life.
Did you know that doctors use Mucinex? That's right. Mucinex is the #1 OTC brand doctors trust for themselves and their families. When you have cough and chest congestion, you need a medicine that's effective and long-lasting. So with cold and flu season upon us, why would you use anything else? Mucinex 12-hour DM extended release bilayer tablets allow for immediate and extended release, relieving cough and chest congestion for 12 hours. Grab Mucinex and put yourself back in control. Use as directed.
So, spring flowers aren't exactly in full bloom, but the deals at Kohl's are. Right now, you can get tech geared for under $15, sandals for everyone in the family for just $24.99, and Black & Decker kitchen appliances for less than $30. You can also earn Kohl's Cash and get it all with free store pickup. Things are looking brighter already. Select styles. Offers in March 27. Some exclusions apply. See storekohls.com for details.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to This Climate Change Conversation on WCPT 820 with Tom Hartman, Joan Esposito, and Patty Vasquez. Sponsored by UAW Region 4, ComEd, AECom, and Illinois AFL-CIO.
And welcome back. Tom Hartman and Patty Vasquez here with you. John Daniel with Smart Local 265, Carter O'Brien with the Field Museum of Natural History, Angela Tovar with the City of Chicago, Bill Abolt with AECom, Congressman Sean Casten, Rob Kelter with the Environmental Law and Policy Center, and Deborah Shore with the EPA. Deborah and Sean, I understand that there is this thing called the EV tour. I'm assuming EV is electric vehicle. I'm sorry, I don't live there, but I'm getting this from our producer here, Melissa Rizzi, who's also with us. Deborah, if you want to start, tell us about this.
Yeah, so sorry. We were on a tour on Monday of this week of a new facility that's being built and built out just near Joliet, Illinois, that was brought to Illinois, and they are a major manufacturer of electric school buses and medium duty trucks. And eventually, as they ramp up production, they said they're going to be building 20,000 school buses a year. And this is going to make a huge difference because the diesel fuel is a pollutant, causes respiratory problems, and affects children's health and everybody who's around these buses. And this is going to drive the new economy.
Congressman Casten, your thoughts on
it? I think it is so cool in part because, like, think about the fact that, 15 years ago, Illinois was a coal state. We were one of the more backward states in the country when it came to getting green. And we are now, booming with wind. We've shut down a bunch of our coal. And we've really become a center of excellence for battery technology, both for vehicles and for stationary. We've got the Lion plant that Deborah Shore and I went to. Navistar is making electric buses up there. Rivian is opening a plant. Argonne National Lab, the work they've done there is the core of the battery technology, just about everybody who's going on right now. Congressman Bill Foster and I got a bill that we introduced that amazingly Trump actually signed it into law, but we got it funded under Biden that'll now provide $1 billion for advanced battery research. And a lot of that's going to end up at Argonne. So we're really the place, we think about climate change as being this huge negative, this collapse of economies on the coasts or places that are in wildfires. And that's true, and we've got to deal with it. But there's also a huge flood of money that's coming into places like Illinois. And it goes to what I was saying before. If you lead, people will follow. It's pretty awesome. And we're seeing that kind of leadership in Illinois.
That's great. Patty, you're muted.
Yep, realize that. Sorry. I wanted to make sure we get to this question from one of our listeners. This is to John Daniel with Smart Local 265. We spoke earlier about getting more students involved in the trades. And as a graduate of Lane Tech, where I took electric shop and wood shop and foundry and all those things, which is why I maybe was a history major, one of our listeners is concerned, and rightly so, that there isn't enough access to green technology and encouraging students in Black populations and Black neighborhoods and Latino neighborhoods, that they're worried that they're being locked out of those fields, that even whether it's high schools or community colleges are not necessarily giving those opportunities. What are your thoughts?
I think the question's spot on. I think it's, it's acute in inner cities, just because of resources. It's not unique though to inner cities, but it's definitely acute. We as a population have underserved the building trades, and the idea that our children can make a sustainable living working with their hands and being creative and being constructive. I think we're going to be judged for that, frankly, when Tom writes one of these next books he has about one of the great missteps of the American culture. What I can say, what's happening, we're all very aware of it. I know Mayor Lori Lightfoot has partnered with Chicago Building with public schools in Chicago just recently, actually just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week. It just ended today. They had a career fair at McCormick Center, and it was phenomenal. I think they had 3,000 students from Chicago Public Schools touring all the different building trades unions. ComEd had a presence there. So it was not just the labor unions, it was industry, showing these students who have never seen it, an actual real path forward that doesn't incur college debt and creates actually sustainable communities. I applaud the mayor. I applaud CPS for partnering with us, organized labor, with our industry partners, and exposing these career paths to people who just never have seen them as an opportunity. There's several organizations for the listener that put the note out. I happen to sit on the board for Cisco. It stands for Construction Industry Service Corporation, cisco.org. I actually just became president by default. It's, I sat down when everyone else stood up or something, but it's a great organization. Dan Allen is the executive director. Dan lives in Chicago. He speaks at a lot of schools, a lot of churches, a lot of government agencies. He's a real ally and resource for people that are trying to expose their children to a sustainable path forward. Jamila Muhammad is our education and careers director through Cisco. Jamelia is amazing. We picked her up. We stole her from IBEW 134 about a year and a half ago. I would encourage any of the listeners that are looking for a career path for their students or students in their community to go to cisco.org and reach out to either Dan Allen or Jamelia and start asking questions. And we'll plug right into your schools. We go to high school districts, community colleges, trade schools throughout all of Northern Illinois on a regular basis to expose who we are and the opportunities for the next generation. We partner with Chicago Builds, with She Builds, with Hire 360, Chicago Women in the Trades. We do all of this as a voluntary, we use our members' money, right? I get paid by the members. We're a private entity. And I volunteer my time with Cisco. And so do all of the other owners that are part of it, because it's a pure labor and management cooperative, understanding that the industry needs a sustainable workforce. And we need a community that thrives. And when we partner with the community, we partner with the employers, the industry, really good things happen. So putting all those pieces together, we haven't been good at it in the past, but we're working our tails off to cure that and to create the opportunity for the workforce.
Well done. Rob Kelter with the Environmental Law and Policy Center. Rob, I'm curious what in your mind are the in the context of what consumers can do and what we can do to drive not just consumer changes in consumer behavior that'll lower our carbon footprint, but also greater levels of enthusiasm among consumers to involve themselves in perhaps the political process or the environmental process in helping bring about a greener future. What are, there's all these conversations about tax credits or pricing carbon or carbon taxes or, things that don't, it's not the government coming to an individual consumer and saying you will, but it does, it has this kind of secondary effect or impacts the marketplace. What are your thoughts on what works, what doesn't work, what we should try, what we haven't tried?
That's a good question. One of the things that we haven't talked about today is that in the state of Illinois, ComEd and Ameren, the two major electric utilities, run a host of energy efficiency programs that can help residential customers be more energy efficient. And that is not only good for the environment, but it helps them save money on their bills. And we always look for what gives you the biggest bang for the buck. And the biggest bang for the buck is reducing your air conditioning usage in the summer. And it's important from an environmental perspective. It helps customers save money on their bills. And the single most important thing we can do is stop cooling our homes and businesses when they're empty. So when people go to work during the day, when they go on vacation, we need to stop cooling those homes, and we need to make sure that everybody has a smart thermostat so that we're not relying on customers to take individual action, that the thermostat is doing that work for you. And ComEd runs a major program that gives customers huge instant discounts on smart thermostats. And one of the big things that I've worked on in the last few years in Illinois is the Million Smart Thermostat program with ComEd to get people to take advantage of the benefits of smart thermostats. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded an answer.
Perfect.
In a similar vein, Carter O'Brien with the Field Museum of Natural History. First of all, we may have crossed paths at Nature's Table in Champaign. Graduated in '93. So, as our green guru at the Field Museum, what are some of the things that you would encourage people to do that you've seen work at the museum? Because again, another gem of Chicago and something that I know that so many people love seeing the progress. What can we do that you would say would fall in the pattern that we can bring home?
Yeah, great question. And I think I would build on Rob's point and say, we at the Field, natural history, we want to encourage the nature-based solutions whenever possible, the passive kind of solutions, things that don't take energy, planting trees, put more trees on the south side of your property and watch that air conditioning bill come down substantially. I got this wonderful little tool. It's just a little thermal imaging camera. I think it was about $150, literally plugs into the bottom of the phone. I can tell you that from the tree that I have that provides shade on the southern part of my house, it knocks 40 degrees off the surface temperature. So, make however you want to calculate that in terms of savings via money or energy, it is beyond substantial. It is, combine it with the smart thermostat, combine it with getting a little more crafty about how you use your energy, and it makes a huge difference. I would say there's also a huge opportunity. Often, I know ComEd has this great program where they'll pay $50 and they'll even show up and get that old junky fridge out of your basement. Oh my God, the basement fridge that I removed was probably the equivalent of my solar panel arrays output, because those were just not built 20, 30, 40 years ago. They were built really well because they're still running, but they're energy hogs. And there's a certain point where it's just like, you got to get it out of there if you don't absolutely need it. And this is a huge opportunity. Places like museums, cultural institutions, schools, we've all got this kind of equipment that can be retired, so, put to rest. I mean, reuse it until it's kind of dysfunctional, I think would be our approach, because we do like reuse, of course, but there is a certain point where light bulbs, things of that nature, just the low hanging fruit. I mean, start with the low hanging fruit and get that stuff kind of knocked out. Again, the trees, but you don't have to go. Trees are often tough, especially in an urban area. You don't have room for the tree. You might not have room to put one on the south side of your house, but you might have the ability to change like your turf grass and replace it with some native plants or something that will actually also knock the temperature down. And I've done the same little thing with the thermal imaging gadget, walked around like the Field Museum's property. And I can tell you, like, grass, man, it is amazing. Grass does not do much. The roots are like about an inch. I mean, you might as well almost just like paint blacktop green in terms of like what it's actually doing for you in its natural benefits. So the native plants that I've kind of measured on our own grounds knock down the temperature about a good 20 degrees around the plants. And that's just, below your waist. So there's all kinds of opportunities, I think, to kind of connect all these dots. And then again, you get all the other benefits of cleaner air, water retention, and habitat. We also love the fact that, you plant these things that attract bumblebees and butterflies, and everybody is just happier about it. I mean, you just have people that are happier to be outside. You're outside, you're not, like on your phone and using more energy indoors. I mean, when I was a kid, we were kicked out of the house. We did not have air conditioning. Really, it was frowned upon to use it. And I guarantee you, we were dirty as heck, but we sure didn't use a lot of energy just running around the neighborhood for 8 hours a day. So I would definitely just encourage people to get outdoors.
Outstanding.
Sounds
If
like a
I
plan.
if I may, Tom, I just want to ask Angela with the city of Chicago, Angela Tovar, to dovetail off of Carter's thoughts and also Rob's. A lot of people, want to recycle, and we sort and we, do all those, the little things in our homes. And I don't think people realize, as Carter was mentioning about planting trees, that people do have that opportunity. How do people find out more about what they can do with their gardens, but planting trees? Because there are a lot in my neighborhood right now in Jefferson Park where they are taking down some of the ash because they're being attacked by some diseases. How can people get those replaced or have new ones planted?
Yes, thanks for asking that question, Patty, because that is so important. I was hoping to jump in to make the plug for our 311 system, because Chicago does give away free trees to anyone that wants one in front of their house. So just on the other piece of your lawn, which we call the parkway, which is the public piece of your lawn, right? So you have your front lawn, sidewalk, and then the other square. We will come and plant a tree in front of your house. So you can call 311 and request a tree for your parkway. Someone from our forestry department will come out, and you even can select from a menu of trees, which is really exciting. And so this year, the mayor did commit to $46 million to plant 75,000 more trees in the city of Chicago. We have a very exciting equity approach that we're taking. We're looking at factors like tree coverage and air quality, and working with our health department to really identify where trees need to be planted the most, and are prioritizing those communities for planting. We're talking to the tree stewardship community locally, and are working with fantastic tree stewards, just another job, economic development opportunity and a job opportunity. But we're talking to folks in neighborhoods that are already doing maintenance on trees to talk about how we can, resource them and potentially create full-time tree, neighborhood tree stewards. So a really exciting approach that we're taking at the city. We're very thrilled about it. And then just want to make a note to the other thing that you mentioned, which is recycling. Of course, we have our blue card and black card system. If people want to know more about what they can recycle, we do have a fantastic website at our city called Recycle by City, which will tell you a breakdown of everything that's recyclable. And then in addition to that, during the holidays, we do recycle trees and pumpkins. And there's information about that there as well as hard to recycle materials that you can take to specific locations for processing.
Wow, that's a lot of that is some great stuff. Congressman Caston, I realized that it would be political suicide. And so I asked this question with that caveat. But I lived in Europe for a year. Gasoline there at the time, I mean, this was in the 80s, and gasoline was selling for $6 to $10 a gallon. I don't know what it is now, but it's probably at least in that neighborhood. There has been talk about carbon taxes. I mean, we're talking here about altering consumer behavior. A carbon tax with a rebate that might go back to individual consumers, things like that. Can you give us your thoughts on ways that Congress might be able to modify consumer behavior to adopt some of the things that we've been talking about here that are politically viable?
Sure. And first, what we absolutely need to put the price on carbon. One of the big distortions in our markets is that people, if they don't pay for it, they don't value it, and we need to put a price on it. However, important to understand is that almost anything we do to lower the carbon intensity of our energy system saves money, which means that the challenge is about deploying the capital, not the incremental decision about how to operate that capital. I mean, think about the fact, some of your listeners probably have solar panels on your roof. If you have a solar panel on your roof, can you ever wake up in the morning and say, I wonder if the power price is high enough to justify the operation of that solar panel? If you have an electric vehicle, do you ever wake up and say, I wonder if the gasoline price justifies me operating an electric vehicle? If you put LED lights in the home, you ever change them out because it doesn't make sense? What we have to do is deploy the capital. And so it's important on our policy choices to make sure that those price signals affect the people like the folks at AECOM who are deploying that capital, because once they build it, it's done. And some of the ideas for carbon pricing are very good at penalizing the bad guys, but if you don't incentivize the good guys, I think there's an intellectual laziness that comes when we assume that a stick is the same as a kick. Right? They're very different policy tools. I think particularly in the vehicle space, when we're talking about the cost of vehicle fuels, most of the cost of ownership of the vehicle is what you pay to finance the car. And think about most of the time it sits in your driveway. And so things we can do to lower the cost of the vehicle have a much more rapid effect on decarbonizing our economy than changing the price of the fuel. That's why we've got these huge tax credits in the Build Back Better program. It's why the CEJA and the REV bill in Illinois have these additional tax credits, because once you build that out, everybody wants to drive them. Not only are they cheaper to drive, they're more fun to drive, right? And we're already seeing that market pull coming, but the right federal tool is to really accelerate that market pull by deploying these assets. And and then, like I said, once we know it's a win-win, let people enjoy the win. But the right policy tools are the way to cover that.
Well said. Thank you.
I just wanted to, I know Rob Kelter had from the environmental law and policy had mentioned in our comments that everyone should have the opportunity to buy solar, because so many people are confused about what's involved, how it changes the property values, how much it's going to cost, whether you're leasing or buying. Tell us a little bit about what you put in our comments about community purchase.
And how do you find a good contractor?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone wants to know.
Well, the point I was trying to make is that, only about 10% of the homes in the Chicago area are really ripe for people to put solar panels on their roof for a number of reasons, but everybody can participate in community solar programs. These are new projects that are going into neighborhoods across the city where you can subscribe to be sort of a part owner of that project without making a big upfront financial commitment or putting solar panels on your roof, and you're still creating the same clean energy benefits that you get from putting a solar panel on your roof. And the new CEJA legislation encourages the development of community solar. There's already a number of projects around the city where you can subscribe. The easiest way to find out how to do this is to go to ComEd's website and just type in community solar, and you're going to get all the information that you need. But that is besides getting a smart thermostat, which is really cheap and easy, the single most important thing customers can do is subscribe to community solar.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Rob. John Daniel, your thoughts on the direction that, let me rephrase that. Your thoughts on the extent to which organized labor can help drive many of these changes.
Oh, it's a great question. we're going to continue to develop and train the workforce, right? We're going to continue to bring awareness to the demand from buildings on energy consumption and how that impacts the climate, the carbon footprint, everything. People can't see the energy consumption that a building actually uses, let alone the mechanical system. And we've learned over the past couple of years now that we can't see the viruses that are in the air that we breathe. The combination that we're going to continue to do is drive energy efficiency in the mechanical systems and providing a clean air environment for the people that come into our commercial buildings to work, to shop, and the schools that we send our kids to. I'm really excited about the potential. I think organized labor needs to continue to grow. I think we need to continue to grow our membership. I think we need to continue to grow our partnership with the employers, with the government. And I think we need to stop being villainized and actually looked as the asset to the United States that we actually are.
One of our listeners, Beth in Michigan, has been sending a lot of comments. So thank you so much to all of our listeners who are joining the conversation. And I think maybe for Bill, we've talked a lot about personal responsibility, and we've also talked a lot about businesses needing to retrofit. Beth wonders about the political pushback from certain business sectors. And in particular, when you have Senator Manchin, who is holding up a lot of things, I know we touched on this a little bit, but how much can be done if there's going to be lobbyists who fight on the side of big corporations?
And we're down to about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
This is bottom line, this is a huge problem. And we, society, business, government, we're not going to have the luxury of not solving it. And I think as Congressman Caston pointed out, we're going to be better solving it and more likely to embrace the upside of it if we lead rather than follow. But we can't ignore the fact that there are going to be transition costs. The congressman talked about that split between rural and urban areas that's become so partisan. You can't leave people behind. You've got to take care of them along the way. But if we do it and if we lead, there's nothing but upside opportunity. And I think across the board, businesses are recognizing that the bills come due. It's time to pay it. Let's solve it as quickly as possible, and let's get innovation going, and we'll be better off for it.
That's absolutely spot on. Patty Vasquez and of course Joan is no longer with us. Joan Esposito, thank you so much for co-hosting this with me, Patty.
My pleasure. Oh my, are you kidding me? Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And also special thanks to UAW Region 4. ComEd, AECom, you just heard from Bill Abel, Illinois AFL-CIO, Deborah Shore with the EPA, the Regional Administrator for Region 5, the Environmental Law and Policy Center, Rob Kelter, City of Chicago, Angela Tovar, Congressman Sean Caston, Congresswoman Marie Newen, Carter O'Brien with the Field Museum, and John Daniel with Smart Local 265. It's 4 o'clock on WCPT. Did I just say 4 o'clock?
You did. It is where you are.
We knew what you meant.
That's okay.
I'm in California.
Looking at clocks for a time cue.
It's 4 o'clock somewhere.
Somewhere.
It is always
here
4
in Portland,
o'clock
Oregon. I'm sorry, Matt. I hope you. I don't know if you can step on that or not.
And if people can watch it later, and it'll be 4 o'clock when someone watches it.
That's right. That's right.
I'm embarrassed.
Well, thank you, panelists. This has been awesome. And Congressman Sean Caston, you are such a trooper. I hope you have a safe flight.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you later. And to the rest of these fabulous panelists, honestly, you guys, I've got to tell you, we do a lot of panels, and we had such incredible engagement.